You're listening to School Counseling Simplified, a podcast with easy-to-implement strategies for busy school counselors. Here's your host, Rachel Davis from Bright Futures Counseling.
Let's play a little game of Would You Rather, School Counselor Edition. Okay, would you rather spend your weekend planning a group or spend your afternoon sitting in irrelevant PD? Yikes. Or would you rather be the only counselor with no one to collaborate with, or to spend hours searching online for engaging activities? All of these options are pretty bad, right? But unfortunately, they're all too real. But what if I told you I had a solution for you? What if I told you I had access to hundreds of school counseling lessons, groups, and activities, counselor-specific trainings on the topics you need most, and a community of like-minded school counselors to support you? You would say, yes, please. Well, that is what Impact is all about. Impact is my monthly membership for school counselors, and it helps you with all of these things. You get access to hundreds of resources. That's unlimited free downloads. Log in and get what you need right away to every single resource that's in my store. We add new resources each and every month. We're adding a new middle school and elementary resource each month, and some of these are bonus Impact exclusives, meaning that you can get resources just for members. You can request resources that you need and easily search so you can find exactly what you're looking for. And let's talk about the trainings, counselor-specific trainings on the topics you need most. We do these each and every month as part of our Coffee with the Counselor series. Impact members get to join for absolutely free. You earn PD certificates and you get exclusive access to members-only things like the Ultimate Small Group Experience and our Summer Summit Conference. And the community. Y'all, this is possibly my favorite part of Impact. I so look forward to jumping on these calls, to getting to know counselors who are similar to me and also completely different. It's so fun to hear from your experiences and your challenges, and everyone brings a unique perspective to the table. We have an exclusive online community, and we even have a cool app where you can chat with other counselors in these community circles. We have our monthly calls, like I mentioned, twice a month, and we share wins, troubleshoot tough cases, and just talk about what it's like to be a counselor, because so often we're on our own island at our school sites. So if any of that sounds like it's for you, I would love to see you inside Impact. Go to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/impact to solve all of your counselor problems. And I have a special offer for my listeners. Use code POD at checkout to save 10% off your first month. Okay, let's go to today's episode. You're listening to another episode of School Counseling Simplified. I absolutely love this episode. Today I interview my friend and colleague Laura. She's an amazing counselor and we love to have her on the podcast. You may remember Laura, she was one of our Summer Summit presenters last year. She talked all about how to use picture books in your counseling program, and she was on an earlier podcast episode talking about the same thing. She is the picture book expert, but she is so much more than that. Today we have Laura on the show to talk all about anxiety strategies. And the best part about this conversation is that it just flowed so naturally. We touch on everything from setting professional boundaries to using therapy dogs in your counseling program. She also shares strategies for students regarding anxiety and for school counselors themselves. I know you're going to love hearing from Laura. She gives very practical applications that you can use right away, as well as just some sound advice. So I loved this episode. It's always a pleasure to talk with Laura, and I think you will love it too. All right, let's check it out. Hi, Laura. How are you today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. We were just chatting and catching up a little off air. It's so good to chat with you. We've known each other a while now. And
I know.
You're not new to the podcast. I was looking back at my notes. You were on last summer, I think, episode 47. For anyone who wants to listen, you were talking with us about how you use picture books in school.
Yes. I love picture books. I've been trying to work on cataloging them yet again, and I'm at like 400 picture books in my office. So I have too many, but I'm super excited too because I'm going to present at ASCA this year on picture books. So I get to share my love of books, which makes me feel better about buying them all the time.
Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. Oh, well, I don't think I'm going to make it to ASCA this year. I really want to. I've been the last 2 years, but our 2021 and 2023. But that would be amazing. Maybe I can catch it. Are they doing a virtual version?
They are doing a virtual version. Yeah.
Maybe I can catch it virtually. Who wants to have a coffee with me? It's time for our monthly Coffee with the Counselor training. April's topic, How to Teach When You're Not a Teacher, a classroom lesson survival guide. If you've ever struggled with managing classroom behaviors, figuring out what to teach in your class lessons, or figuring out how to engage students, you're going to love this topic. These are things that I used to struggle with. I've learned so much, and I cannot wait to share what I've learned with you. Remember, the Coffee with a Counselor trainings are free for Impact members. If you're an Impact member, you get this month and every single month's training included in your membership. But if you're not, we would love for you to join us. For the price of your daily Starbucks run, about $10, you can join our Coffee with the Counselor training. Included is a PD certificate and a fun freebie. Again, that's How to Teach When You're Not a Teacher, a classroom lesson survival guide. Go to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/coffee to save your seat. I can't wait for our coffee date. See you there. Awesome. Well, tell us, what have you been up to since we last talked? What's your last year kind of looked like?
It's been a really busy and interesting year. I have been working with some new counselors and just helping like mentor them as they come in, and that's just super exciting. And have got to visit a lot of schools, and I have really realized how different every program looks. It's amazing to me, like how we all work under the same kind of like framework, but how programs are so remarkably different for so many reasons. And then I've just been trying to get my creativity on and writing down, jotting out some ideas I've had for picture books and just crossing my fingers. Maybe one of those will get published.
Oh my gosh, so exciting. Are you doing like self-publishing route, or are you going through like a publisher and
I'm trying to go through a publisher and get a book agent. That is like my ultimate goal. So
yeah. Oh, that's
big
so
goals, big dreams, big goals. But
yes.
it brings on a lot of anxiety because every time you put yourself out there, you're so vulnerable, and every time you get a no or a rejection, it's just so hard. So it can be really anxiety producing.
Right, which is a perfect segue to what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
But no, that's so true. Whenever you work on something creatively, it's like your baby, right? So when it gets rejected, it's hard to not take it personally.
Yeah, it is. It's a really personal thing.
Yeah, definitely. I have a question about your mentoring other counselors. Is that through are these like counselors in your district, or
They are. They're counselors in our district. I help out with our state advisory board as well. We have a group of counselors from the state level, but really I've been focusing on just like I say new counselors, but counselors that are new to our county, and new might mean they were a teacher and now they're a counselor, or maybe they were high school and then they went to elementary, which I did many, many, many years ago. So, and some of them are brand new. They're brand new to the position. So it's been really interesting and fun to go out there and see where I can help them and the different things that are making them anxious, like just getting the paperwork done or managing their time or figuring out organization. Or setting boundaries has been a really big one I've talked to with a lot of new counselors, because I think, and I was this way, we come in with so much energy and passion and we're ready to take on the world. And I'm like, that's not sustainable. And once you set the stage for that, it's really hard to go back and say no later on. So we've had some like good discussions and some thoughtful, mindful moments about, I know you're giving a kid a break because that teacher needs a break. And that is so sweet and so wonderful that you want to help, but that's not sustainable. And like, what if you're not here and you can't do it? Yeah. So, and then taking some time to just put together some more mindful small groups, as in like I've thought about why I'm doing it, and I'm not just doing it because somebody asked me to do it. So that's been a struggle for them too, because we're people pleasers, and somebody asks us to do something and we say no, and it's taken me like 14 years in this position to be like, actually, let me slow down before I agree to do that. Like,
Right.
why am I doing it? Do I need to be done? Like just slowing down, taking a little pause before we are reactive. And so we're more responsive.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Yeah, boundaries are huge. I was the exact same way. Saying yes to all the things, even things that are like outside of your role or not sustainable.
Yeah.
You know, good intentions, but
Yes.
burnout for sure.
Yeah.
What about, I wanted to ask you what you think educators should know about anxiety, but I kind of want to split it in two things, because I love that you mentioned anxieties that counselors are facing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about like what they should know about in terms of themselves and then students.
Yeah. So splitting it, when I first was thinking about what educators should know, I was thinking about teachers, and I really feel like, so I'm going to kind of do two things at once. I really think about our role as consults, and it was like one class for me in grad school, and I liked it and I enjoyed it. But as I've gone on, I've really realized our role of consult, like that consultation, is such a key piece because we have all this knowledge that our teachers don't have. And so sometimes I think some anxiety that I have faced is I get frustrated with adults and educators in the building, and I'm like, why are they doing that? Why would they think that that's a good idea? And then I remember maybe I have a piece of knowledge that they don't have. So, one piece of advice I have found myself giving, I'm still practicing getting better at doing it myself, is when a teacher comes to us as counselors, I have given them the advice of asking them, slowing down and saying to the teacher, like, what do you need from me right now? Are you telling me this just because you need to vent about the student and it's been a really rough day? Are you telling me because you need advice on what you could do in your classroom? Or are you asking me to meet with the student and create like a plan with that student? Because sometimes I walk in, and I know I especially did this when I was a new counselor. If somebody told me about something that was going on as a student, I took that in my brain as I need to work with the student. I need to help that student. And that's not always the case. Like maybe they
Right.
just really wanted to vent about it, or maybe they needed some suggestions on what they could do in their classroom. So I've been sharing that little tidbit with a lot of the new counselors is to get something off your plate, but in a really healthy, productive way that's best for the teacher and making them feel heard. It's just slowing down and asking them why they're coming to you. What did they best need? And I've even updated my referral form to kind of reflect that.
Oh, I love
Like,
that idea.
yeah. So when you're referring a student to me, it's like, what have you tried? What do you need?
Oh, that's great. What have you tried? I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, sometimes maybe they're looking for strategies and the eager, newer
Mhm.
counselors like, oh, okay, perfect. I can see them on Tuesdays at 2.
Yes.
And then you're
Yes.
like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah, and then one thing I keep coming back to is like, why are what we're doing not working in the classroom? And it's because we're like in our office working with that kid that's going great, and then it's not working in the classroom. And maybe they never needed to see you in your office. The teacher just needed you to be like, hey, try this strategy with them.
Right.
So
I love that. Are you doing any like training for teachers, or do you recommend doing that as well? Or is this, because this is like an individual approach, what we were
I think
talking
it's both. I think it's like I am almost started to see consultation as kind of like that tiered system. Like tier one, I love to do teacher in services and trainings. And I've done them in person at staff meetings. Sometimes they have their like PLC meetings or their team meetings each week, and I've gone to them and done them. That one's always so I love doing it in person because you get that feel of the room. I will never forget getting teacher feedback on where they were struggling, and they kept saying defiant students. We have students that are defiant, defiant. So I did one during their grade level meetings on working with defiant students. Of course, first defining what is really a defiant student. And I asked them to jot down, like, what are the requests that they were asking that student to do that they wouldn't comply with? Was it like getting out their book, finishing their anything? And I had a teacher that just sat there and just refused. It just became super defiant in and of herself. And I was like, oh, this is funny because now I have to practice what I'm teaching. And it was
about.
hard. It was really
Yeah,
hard
I know.
getting a defiant adult to do it. And I was like, okay.
Wow.
Um, so I love going in and doing it that way. I feel like our educators feel like their time is really limited, and we're about to hit our standardized testing season, and all these issues are popping up. So I just actually last week sent out three kind of self-paced PDs they could do, kind of like the coffees with the counselor. And I sent out some videos and resources that they could watch on their own time. And they had a variety of topics, and they ranged from like 10 minutes to like 30 minutes or even an hour, just depending on how much time they wanted to invest in getting that. Um, so that's really fun. So you could do like tier one, like the whole, like at a faculty meeting, then like tier two small group kind of in their own the grade level meeting. And then of course one-on-one, like that consultation, like in the moment, which teachers grab me all the time in the hallway to ask me a question. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there should be a book consultation on the fly. Like when you
Right.
get stopped in the hallway and somebody's asking, you're like, okay, hold on, let me think. And I'm like think about it, let me process it. I'll probably still be thinking about it in the shower. I'll come back to you tomorrow. So I'm still getting better about like getting better on the fly. And I've been telling our new counselors that like it's a-okay to look at a teacher and say, I don't know. Can I think about that and get back to you? You don't have to know all the answers right then.
It's almost like we give students those little rings with cards on them.
Yes,
Carry
yes.
around, we need those.
Yes, that would be amazing, wouldn't it? Like,
Yeah.
tell me about that kid's problem. Hold on, I've got a
Okay,
card for that. So it's been really good. Like yesterday, a teacher asked me about a kid on the fly in the hallway. And going back to what I wish teachers or educators knew was this is a student that I suspect has a lot of trauma. We also know he has a diagnosis of ADHD. And I found myself having this conversation with her about what is in his control and what is out of his control. And we might be asking his brain to do things it is not ready to do, that it cannot do. We're asking him to do something that is not in his ability level. And she was really struggling with that and empathizing with that, but also feeling like she was being held accountable. Like if he's not doing his work, like how did that reflect upon her? And like giving her that permission that it's okay. And sometimes like the best thing you can do for those kids is provide that secure, loving, safe environment. And then actually turning in work might be like that cherry on top bonus. But she felt like she was failing him and failing herself as an educator. And we really had this deep conversation of not only what was in and out of his control, but what was in and out of her control. And so that's a lesson that every time I teach it, I hear it like in my head. I'm like, oh, take note of this. Like, take note of this, that circle of control, because I am a self-proclaimed control freak. I really do love having that control because it just provides me stability. And as a very anxious person myself, like I struggle with anxiety, like we're always grasping for stability, I think, and control. So yeah, I wish teachers knew a little more about like those circle of controls. I don't have teachers that sit in my classroom and listen to those lessons. So one thing I love to do is send out newsletters after every class, and we go over what we talked about in class and then ways they can reinforce it in class, like really quick, like a book they can read. Because again, I have so many, like check out one of these books from me, a song they could sing, a little mini lesson. I call them my pause lessons. I have a little mini lessons that I send out that are like 10 minutes. And I remember I had a teacher that I never thought would do this. I just never dreamt in a million years he was that teacher that would actually open my emails, let alone like click on it. And I walked into his classroom one day and he was watching it. And I was like, oh, blown away. And I love that because they're having to hear it too. And they're really quick little lessons.
Oh, I love that. That's such a good idea and like an extra effort on your end, but I bet it goes so far and maybe down the line prevents you from getting more referrals for
Exactly. I'm a firm believer in like, if you can like hit tier 1 heavy and hard, do that whole school stuff, it's going to have a ripple effect. And hopefully you won't see as many tier 2, tier 3, like individual referrals.
Right. And I think every counselor would agree they feel like they don't have enough time to see everyone they need to see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's such a good strategy. And so, yes, you were talking earlier about cataloging your books. You let your teachers check out the books from you.
I do.
Right?
Yeah. I do. Because I have so many, and I can't get to them. Like, I mean, if I read every book I owned, one book every day, I'd have enough for years upon years. And I struggle. Like, there's some topics that I'm like, oh, we don't have enough books for this. But then there are other books where I'm like, oh my gosh, like anger management. Like, look at my 12,000 books. And I'm like, I don't know which one to read with the kids. So I'll read one, then I'll like hand one to the teacher and say, we didn't have time to read this, but you might love it. So.
I don't know if this is a spoiler alert. You don't have to share if you don't want to, but what are the books that you're writing? What topics?
Oh, I will totally. So this is going to sound funny and like bear with the thought process. But I'm British. I was born in England. And so this Kate Middleton, like, where is she? What's going on? And then finally, like, learning she had cancer, like really hit home for me. Like my phone was blowing up about it. Everybody was talking about it. It's totally how I spent a lot of my spring break was like, where's Kate? And then those feelings of like those icky feelings afterwards, you're like, ooh, I felt icky about gossiping and talking about that. So one of them is called The Lost Remote, where it's about a family who loses the remote and it immediately escalates, like immediately, like something very little escalates in their family. And then somebody on their family posts it online and the rumors and the gossip swirls. Where is it? Where could it be? Similar to that, like, where was she? Where is she? And then she was right, or just like Kate was right there all alone. The remote is right there. And then they have to deal with those, like, okay, we started all these rumors. It got out of control. Social media took over. And now we've got to sit and like think about that. So that's a
Oh,
one idea. And I'm toying around with the idea of doing a flip book. I don't know if anybody's ever read A Tale of Two Beasts. Is really cute for point of view because it's told from the point of view of a girl and then it's told from the point of view of the beast. And so my idea is like if you had a book, you opened it one way, you would read it from the perspective of the family. And then if you flipped the book over and read it from the other way, it would tell you the perspective from the dog because I'm a dog
oh,
lover.
yeah,
And
right.
I'm always really curious what my dog is thinking when I'm doing things. Like, what does my
Right,
dog think is happening right now?
right.
So it would be told like this dog's watching their family in chaos and just watching it all erupt. So from their point of view. So that's one of them. And then another one is the feelings beneath the anger that we all
Mm.
have. So there's a lot of books I think on anger and what anger is, but I've found very few on like the feelings, those hidden feelings underneath anger. That maybe my kids tell me they're feeling angry, but the whole time they were really jealous.
Right. Oh, that's
So
so
mhm.
two personal examples I'm thinking of. I love these topics. I'm going to buy the books.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're cheering you on. But no, the remote example and the Kate example, we have a cleaning lady who helps us out, which is I'm
Mhm.
so grateful for. And it's one of those things where I've caught myself before being like, where's whatever? It's like, oh, maybe Miss Marta put it here. And then I heard my son saying it, who's like 3. And
Yeah.
then we just find it later. It was our fault.
Yeah.
We're like,
Yeah.
why are we blaming Miss Marta? Like that's
Yes. Yes.
okay. And
But
you
don't
feel
we all do it?
yeah, and you feel shame and you feel
Yeah.
icky and you're like, oh, that was so messed up. Like, why did I assume not that she took it, but that she moved
No.
it or something, like
I
a
do
fresh.
it all the time too. Yes.
Yeah.
I always assume like the worst that not like when something's missing, I like my first thought is never like I've put it somewhere or it's always like, who moved this? Where did
Right.
it go?
Exactly. Yeah. And then with the second thing about the feelings beneath anger, my husband, I was talking to him the other night because I'm like an open book. Like I'll be like, I'm feeling this and this, and we have to talk
Yeah.
and all the things on the table. And he's more, it'll come out so much later.
Hmm.
And the other day it was, we have young kids, we're tired, it's late. And finally he said something and I was like, oh, that's why you were acting like that way. I'm like, could you not have told me that like 10 hours ago? Like, tell me, please. Like, I don't have time to like chip
Yes.
away at like what's actually going on.
I know. Isn't that so funny? Because it's like we feel
Yeah.
rushed. Like I'm all
Yeah.
about preaching mindfulness and practicing mindfulness. And I'm like, mindful, mindful, mindful. But then I'm the exact same way. I'm like, you have X number of minutes to tell me, and then I've got to move on. I've got to move on. This is kind of a sad story, but I'm a lover of all things TV related and like even reality TV. And there is Married at First Sight Australia. And I have been watching it, and it's just been like my guilty pleasure. And there they matched a couple where one is like really, she's a yoga teacher, she's really in tune with her feelings, and her husband has gone through all this trauma, and he just doesn't, he has these walls up, he doesn't want to share. And she's slowly been helping him like sit with his feelings and figure out all these feelings that are coming across as anger, but it's a lot of grief, it's a lot of other things going on. And it has been the most beautiful journey to watch. Her name is Lucinda. Anybody is watching that show, you just know what I'm talking about. I feel like we need more Lucindas in the world because she is so patient. And she's always like, we're on a journey together. We're on a journey to discover his feelings. And I'm like, that is
Wow.
so sweet because I'm like, tell me your feelings so we can
Right.
process them.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Oh, that's so good. This has been so fun. Let's talk about kids. How can we support our students with anxiety strategies? Some like practical day-to-day things we can send the counselors with.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is practicing those mindful moments. I saw a grant a couple years ago that I'm like, oh, I want to figure out a way to duplicate this. Is the grant was for getting all of their students' heart rate monitors. And when their heart rate monitors increased, that was the kid's signal to go to the calm corner or to use a deep breathing strategy, to use those strategies that we are teaching them. And so often I think we are quick to teach them breathing, but we need to slow down and tell them like how will they notice in their bodies when they need to do that strategy, and like their heartbeat going up. And so I started doing that in my lessons, and it's so interesting watching kids find their heartbeat and their heart rate. And a lot of them can't, or they're discovering it for the first time. And so that's like a really fun one, is just adding that piece in, is pausing and having them learn how to find their heartbeat and their heart rate. And then I think also helping them expand their window of tolerance. and doing that in ways about like figuring out what the size of a problem, what's no biggie, what's a big deal. And then with those no biggies, how can they problem solve through that and be more responsive? And then helping them do some of those CBT strategies. I have run a lot of CBT groups this year and I love it, like reframing and challenging their thoughts, problem solving. That's really fun. And then another one I would say, like, pick what help them, pick what's best for them. I'm always interested. We just finished up our coping skills March Madness at school. And so we had a bracket. We did it school wide. And so, like, every week on the announcements, we would practice and talk about two strategies. We'd have 2 games a week and we'd break it down until their final one. And then I did it in a small group this week where they had their own individual brackets and I gave them similar things that they might love and they had to figure out like which one and practice it that they love. And they really like took ownership of it and could explain why that helped them the best. And it was really cool to see. Yeah.
In the school-wide one, I've seen your March Madness thing before. That's so cool.
I love it.
At the school-wide level, how do you decide which coping skill like wins?
The kids vote. Well, the classrooms vote. I've done it different ways over the years. It really just depends on your school. I've done it where the kids had a Google form on like my virtual classroom and they were really good. At my school now, we just go on the news and I send the teacher a link and they do a really quick, like heads down and they vote. And then the teachers vote as a class. And they got so into it. Listening to music was what won this year, which as a music lover, like I love going to concerts. I was like, yes. And it beat fidget tools, which like I was sure fidgets were going to win, but it did not. And those fourth grade classrooms, they were like in it, like they were like listening skills or listening to music has to win. Listening to music has to be the winner. And I was like, I don't know, kindergartners love those fidgets. And they're like, no, it's this. Like they got so into it. So it's real quick, like a Google vote.
Yeah, that's so fun. I feel like at the school-wide level, it's just bringing awareness to like all these possible strategies you could use. But then how you were saying with the groups, kids are really self-aware, like, okay, what one would actually work for me?
Yep. And we did in third grade because we're hitting those testing again. We've talked about our test taking strategies. And the last time I saw them, we did coping centers. And so they got to practice some of them. And then at the end, they each got their individual bracket and they figured out which one like really helped them the most. So it was a ton of fun.
I want to be one of your students. So fun. This one, I didn't ask you this question in advance, but since you mentioned testing season, do you have any like test anxiety strategies or specific test anxiety things you do with kids?
We do a lot. I have test anxiety in myself. And so I really can empathize with those students. One thing I stole from Sarah Carlo and is really also a good like yoga mudras, which are like your hand positions, but finger touch affirmations, like I can handle this. So you're tapping your finger together as you're saying it. We do a lot of positive affirmations to help challenge and change those like unhelpful thoughts. I have actually noticed over the last few years, a lot of it is like really proactive, asking classes and then groups and even individual students what are their thoughts about the test? Because a lot of them have misconceptions. Like they think, oh, if I do this, this is going to happen. This has also been a really big challenge for our state because a lot in the past it was if I fail my standardized test, I'm not going to move on to the next grade. And so a few years ago, I could just challenge that misconception and say, can I just tell you that that's not true? And they were like, oh, and it was just taking the time to figure out what, but now in our state, that is not necessarily true that they can get held back if they don't. So that's been a really big challenge too of helping them kind of reframe it, but in ways that are realistic, maybe more realistic now. I have to bring animals into this. One of my favorite things to do is we work with our local Habit organization, which is our animal assisted therapy at the University of Tennessee. And there's tons of animal assisted therapy programs out there, like Pet Partners. And we have volunteers that will come like the weeks leading up to or even on those standardized testing days, and they'll have their therapy dogs greeting the students as they come in or walking around right before they take it. My dog Boss for many years was that therapy dog who we would sit out front as the kids came in for their tests and they would come up and talk to him. And I cannot even express how amazing it was. And that's probably been one of my favorite things And if you don't have a therapy dog, don't panic. There are organizations out there and people love to volunteer their time. And there's so much amazing research on animal assisted therapy, on not only helping students with their executive functioning, like improving their focus, but also improving their confidence, improving their reading skills, and then even some research on how it lowers cortisol, and just helps them with so many things. So it's really cool. And I was just actually looking up some research yesterday on how animal assisted therapy can help with students with traumatic brain injuries and even patients with Alzheimer's. It helps with their recall, and their ability to sequence events. And so that's just been one, like, a real passion for me, is anytime I can bring the animals into it.
I love that. Yeah, I actually, for my internship when I was studying psychology in undergrad, I had an internship at a nonprofit and we worked with therapy dogs.
Oh, isn't it
The lady I
amazing?
worked with, yeah, she had a dog named Cupid, a poodle. And so it was called Cupid
Oh,
Club. And we had all these dogs and we would bring them on campus during exams,
uh-huh.
final exams to the library and stuff. And yeah, it was
Yes.
so cool.
Oh, I just love that. I just love it. I can just even imagine Cupid in my head as we're talking about it. I got goosebumps.
So your dog is a therapy dog?
He passed like a year and a half ago, and it's taken me some time. Like, I've had my own grief with that, like being around it again, but he was a therapy dog. And he was like my coworker. So when he passed, it was like, oh, I've lost a coworker. But man, he was amazing. And to watch those kids like walk in and just like talk to him before the test. And then we even went to the University of Tennessee for their college students. That was probably his favorite. We would go into the library. I could literally drop the leash and he would walk around and he would visit different students that were studying for their exams. So, yeah.
I love that. This has been an awesome episode. I wish we could talk forever. This has
Me
been great.
too. That's how I always feel every time I talk to you.
We'll have to get on again for sure. Thank you so much. Where can everyone find you if they want to connect with you? And don't you have a March Madness? I know this episode's going to air too late, but maybe if they want to snag it for next year, a March Madness.
Snag it for next year, and I use the brackets all the time, but you can snag it on my Teachers Pay Teachers, so Positive School Counselor, PAWS, like pause. And I'm probably the most active on Instagram because I'm an old lady now, and TikTok overwhelms me. And I had Facebook when it was the Facebook, and only certain colleges had it, but I'm pretty much never on there. But so probably Instagram is the most, and it's Positive School Counselor, PAWS, PAWS, Positive School Counselor.
I love it. And you said you call your lessons, the mini lessons, pause
Lessons. Yeah.
Yeah. Is your school mascot a dog or anything?
No, I have worked at schools where we did have pause, and and so that was always beautiful for an alignment. This has been eons ago. I was at an ASCA conference and they talked about branding your program, and it hit home for me. Like, some of our counselors that are on like Teachers Pay Teachers, we all know all about branding, but anybody can brand your program. And so I branded mine like a dog theme. Like, I had a dog that was in all of my yearbook photos with me. We had the pause classes. Everything was kind of branded with dogs, and my kids got to know it, and my parents would too. They'd roll through car line and roll down their window and go, you're that lady that loves dogs. I was like, yes, I'm the school counselor. Like, people got to know me that way. So I've branded it, and even though I'm at schools now that have different mascots, I've kept that brand for my program, because it really, really works. So
no, I love that idea. Yeah. So counselors listening, think about branding.
Yeah.
You can make it more memorable for the students. I feel like retention is just aligned when things are more memorable. That's why I love to do like a fun theme or something silly.
Yes.
Because then I know, just back on my own elementary school, the things that stand out were when they were really memorable and unique.
Exactly. Yeah, totally agree.
I love that. Always good to chat with you, Laura.
You too.
So much. Have an awesome rest of your day.
All right. Bye.
Isn't Laura just the best? I hope you loved this episode as much as I did. I also hope that you'll join me later this month when I share How to Teach When You're Not a Teacher, a classroom lessons survival guide. If thinking about teaching class guidance lessons makes your palms sweaty, then you are going to love this. It's on April 24th at 6 p.m. Eastern. If you can't make it live, feel free to still sign up because we're going to be sending out a recording. You'll also receive a related resource and a PD certificate. Go to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/coffee to save your seat. Impact members, remember this training is always free for you, so I definitely can't wait to connect with you guys. If you're not an Impact member, we would love for you to join us in Impact at stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/impact. Or if you just want to check out the coffee date and see what it's all about, save your seat at stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/coffee. All right, guys. Can't wait to see you then.
Thanks for listening to School Counseling Simplified. You can find the links from today's episode in the show notes. If you'd like to connect with Rachel, she's on Instagram and Teachers Pay Teachers at Bright Futures Counseling. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes of School Counseling Simplified. Talk to you next week.